Hey, we're Saints Father Chris here. Welcome to our Crucifixion live stream. Glad to have you beautiful people with us. I was fired up today, and I have been all the way since this time yesterday when Greg did his live stream. And he brought up this great image from the movie The Lord of the Rings, the first installment, which is called The Fellowship of the Ring. I'm sure you all have seen this. If you haven't, what's wrong with you? Get out there and watch them. All three. Unbelievable. Anyways, in the first one, the heroes are running through these dark caves, the mines of Moria, when all of a sudden a Balrog comes across their path. And the Balrog is this, in the story, this huge fire-breathing demon, really, from the bowels of hell. And one of the main characters, Gandalf, who's kind of the guide, the wizard, the one who leads them on this journey, he ends up fighting this Balrog. And they fall into... basically, the idea is darkness and hell. And at the end of the first movie, you think that Gandalf is dead. I mean, it's a great scene. He's hanging on a cliff, and then all of a sudden, he vanishes, and he's like falling into the darkness. The second installment of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which is called The Two Towers, the character Gandalf reappears. Only this time, he is not Gandalf the Grey. His clothes are not gray. His hair is no longer gray and dirty. He's Gandalf the White. And his hair is long and white and perfectly manicured, and his robes are beautiful and without spot or wrinkle or stain. And it's like there has been a transformation in the character. And that character is transformed. He's totally different because he has faced the darkness, right? He went into the darkness and monsters. Look, monsters dwell in the darkness, baby. And don't tell me no, because when you were a little kid, just like me and just like Greg and all of us, we were afraid to look under the bed when it was dark because monsters are in there. And sometimes we didn't want to open the closet because we didn't know what kind of monsters were in there, right? Darkness is where the monsters live. And he decided, this Gandalf character, to go into the darkness, to face it, to conquer it. And what happens is that he comes out on the other side transformed. I mean, it's a powerful story, really an image for all of us. You're going to see it further as I go into another powerful movie, and in this time also the second installment of a trilogy in the great Star Wars series, number 2, The Empire Strikes Back. And as you know, did I get that one right this time? Greg was telling me I got it wrong the first time. In The Empire Strikes Back, what happens? Luke is on in the Dagobah system with Yoda, and he's trying to become a Jedi, and he comes across this dark cave, right? And he goes into the dark cave, and he's got his lightsaber, and all of a sudden, his nemesis, Darth Vader, is there. And they have this sword fight, and Luke actually ends up conquering the monster, Darth Vader, in the dark. And as he conquers him, Darth Vader's his face mask explodes, and what happens? He doesn't see Darth Vader's face. Who does Luke Skywalker see? He sees his own face, right? He sees himself. And putting these two together, I think both of them, Tolkien and George Lucas, they're telling an interesting tale about the darkness that I think is important for you and I. First is that monsters live in the darkness, and that only by confronting them, only by challenging them, can we overcome them and be transformed, i.e. Gandalf. But what is the monster in the dark, right? There are certainly monstrous things in the world. There's a lot of darkness in the world, whether it's the stuff you see on socials, the political season, which, dear God, please end soon, next week, God willing. Like, that kind of stuff is darkness. The social media feeds are darkness. The Hurricane Helene, and what was the other one? Winston? I forgot what his name was. Whatever they are. Like, that was chaos. There's war in Ukraine. There's war in Gaza. They're bombing my home country of Lebanon. Chaos. I mean, do I need to keep going? Right? Like, on and on, there's darkness. But the biggest darkness... the greatest monster, I think, is revealed to us in The Empire Strikes Back, number 2 of that series, when Luke defeats the monster bad guy Darth Vader and sees himself. Inside the darkness, not of the world, but inside the darkness, the real monster is the self. It is the ego. It is the hubris. That's where we have to do battle, right? That's the real battleground, the battleground of the heart. And here's why we are our own monsters. I don't think it's particularly because you are bad people. I hope that I am not a bad person. I am trying. I do bad things, for sure. I'm a sinner. But I'm trying to be a good person. I don't think that it's that I'm inherently bad. The darkness, the monster. When I look at my own face, the way Luke Skywalker looked at his in the costume of the monster, is because I know that no matter what I say or how hard I work, I am not what I am supposed to be. I think the real monster is me recognizing that somehow I have fallen short from what God has asked and called me to be and do. That's probably because of my own fear, my own laziness, sloth and laziness, all that kind of stuff, my own lack of understanding, whatever my sins may be. I'm not what I'm supposed to be. And look, I'm working hard every day to be really a good person, a good man, a good teacher of the gospel, a warrior saint. But I know that I could do more and I could be more. And it's partly because in the darkness of the world, which affects the darkness in my mind, I can't see clearly all the time. I don't always know what the hell I'm supposed to be doing, right? Sometimes I do and I just refuse it. Sometimes life is beautiful and difficult, right? I mean, it's so hard to know what we're supposed to be doing, to live according to the commandments of God, so that we might be not just good men and good women. We might not just be good Christians, but we might become truly warrior saints, right? And so how do I see in the midst of that darkness? Remember when you were a kid and the monsters were living under your bed, what did you do? How did you defend yourself against them? You might have had your mom or dad put a night light in the room. And even though that light might not have been blazing the way the sun does in the daytime or the lights that we have in our studio, but that light, it's just enough for you to be able to see and navigate in the darkness, right? We do that at my house now. Not because we're afraid of monsters, but because old people have to get up in the middle of the night and use the bathroom all the time. And it's dark. So my bride bought these little night lights in the hallway just so we don't stub our toes on the edge of the door frame. You know what I mean? Like that light, even though it may seem small and insignificant, shows us how to live our life. Here now, my beautiful warrior saints, we come to Scripture. Gospel of John, which Greg talked about yesterday and we've been using throughout this week, chapter 1, verse 4. In him, meaning this word who comes into the world, was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. And even though you may say, like, oh my gosh, the Lord Jesus Christ, okay, he's the light, but the world is prevailing against him. Oh no, it's not. It may not look to you as though the light of Christ is conquering in the world, but it is there. And no matter how great the darkness is, it cannot overcome that light. The challenge is, the choice is for you and I, as Greg said yesterday, when he was struggling through the airport with, one set of ladies was complaining about the delayed flight and one set of ladies was just being happy and making the most of it in the midst of the delay. There's a choice. And that choice today I'm throwing before you, our beautiful warrior saints. What are you going to do? Are you going to take that light of Christ and do the business and live as a warrior saint? Or will you let that darkness overwhelm you and continue to crush and oppress you, right? For a long time, I did that. I didn't know what to do. So I let the darkness oppress me and crush me. But I decided enough was enough. I'm not going to do this anymore. And so I'm encouraging you to also take the light of Christ into your hearts, into your minds, into your actions. Let's engage that monster within, the ego, the hubris, you who are not what you know you are supposed to be, and let's get some. And how do you do that? There's only one answer. You must live as Christ lived. How did Christ live on the cross? How did the cross conquer? It slew death through his death. You too must live that crucifixional life, right? We say it on every episode. Being crucifixional is being like Christ, putting our will aside in order to do his will. And so I think there's a couple of steps here you got to understand. Number one is confront the darkness, acknowledge it, recognize it's there. Look, you are probably beautiful people. And if I know you, then I obviously already love you because we've, developed a relationship. And even some of the people out there who, we have now created some kind of a synthetic online relationship. I think you're great people, amazing people. So you got it in there. Acknowledge, however, that there could be something more. That darkness, that you that's in there that is not living to its full potential, it's time to confront it and say, all right, I recognize you. I will no longer ignore you. No more ostrich, no more hiding. I'm going to acknowledge you. I am going to, as Gandalf did with the Balrog, engage. I'm going into the darkness and I will fight with this monster, right? And really dedicate and put yourself in the position to learn, to grow, to read, to study, to experiment, try things that are hard, that sometimes may make you uncomfortable, but are crucifixional, sacrificing your own will in order to do God's, so that as you confront this darkness and you want this growth, you can start to see even small baby steps forward. And in that, by building upon it with another, boom, soon you have a streak. And streaks, my brothers and sisters, they matter. The second part of that is, look, and don't you dare worry about it. If you start to make these strides forward, you're starting to better your life, people will be uncomfortable with that. They're uncomfortable with seeing you make progress and change in your life. And they may say things like, you've changed. Or like, I hear it all the time, Father Chris, we can't ever get access to you anymore. You're so busy, right? I mean, and it hit me. I feel bad because I love people and I want to be with them, but I'm trying to make myself a better man. And in doing so, I got to focus on the right things. I can't focus on everything. And the people who are also in that boat, who are trying to move forward, they applaud it. The ones who complain are those who are particularly super needy. Like, in other words, what they're saying is, well, I want to have access to you all the time because, it makes me feel better just to talk with you and whatever. And thank you. I appreciate that. That's honoring me, but they're not making progress in their own lives. They've not confronted the darkness in their own life. They have not, as Gandalf did to fight the Balrog, they're still walking on the bridge. They do not, Khazad-dûm, the bridge of Khazad-dûm. They have not decided to make a positive change in their own lives. And so rather than even acknowledge that, it's easier to say, oh, you're doing bad things, you're so busy and blah, 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 because they don't want to get into the fight themselves, right? Like, so expect it. Realize there will be people who will come after you, or not even in a nasty way, but in a way to say, like, you can see that they are expressing their own fears and their own shortcomings because they, unlike you, are not involved in making themselves better men and women, warrior saints, right? The last part of all this, and really I think maybe it's the most important part of it, is don't you ever quit. Look, when you are fighting monsters, you will lose some battles, right? I do every single day. Luke Skywalker did. I mean, eventually that same Darth Vader chopped his hand off in the second one. In the third one, he got a mechanical arm, right? And he ends up winning the day because he didn't quit. He didn't stop. He kept going. Likewise, Gandalf, right? He fell into the deep, dark pits of hell, basically, when he was fighting the Balrog. But if you watch the second installment of The Lord of the Rings, which is called The Two Towers, he comes back no longer as Gandalf the Grey, no longer in gray, dirty, tattered robes with a messed up hair and a dirty beard. He's all white, and he's known as Gandalf the White, with perfectly manicured white hair, perfect garments that have no stain or wrinkle upon them. He has been transformed, right? Because he did not quit. And they show you the scene where he fought the Balrog and he fell from heavens, into the deepest recesses of hell for hour upon hour. It was a long, drawn out fight where he was getting beaten and bludgeoned, and yet he didn't quit. As Christ himself did not quit on his journey to the cross and thereby conquers. Same for you and me. All right, Warrior Saints, I think the message hopefully is clear. I beat a horse pretty dead today, but I felt fired up about it because you know what? Like, that light that helps us see in the darkness is the cross of Jesus Christ, living crucifixionally. And if you do that, no matter how awful that monster of your lack of potential within your own life may seem or feel to you, if you live crucifixionally, you're going to see, I promise you, one step each day, farther and farther, till all of a sudden you wake up, and though you may not be in a movie, you might be transformed, just as Gandalf the White was, just as Luke Skywalker becomes a Jedi, so too you might become a warrior saint. Love you, beautiful people. We will be back tomorrow, and as always, keep walking on the way of the warrior saint.